of the Rebbe. So thank you for everyone who's here, the Guf, the Nefesh, or from far, from near, online. And Mr. Shanzel, their Pula, Hapach Zayin Yavim Elu, Sasim Simcha. If you have this galus of the Rebbe, take it. Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, you could let them know.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. We'll talk tonight about how to teach emunah to your children. Obviously, to teach to your children, you have to first teach it to yourself. So, but the dog is going to be about emunah betachon in the kinder of our kids. I want to start off with the mamish this week, Shabbos. I had an interesting story here. I was at Baruch Hashem, I invited to guest Shabbos, and young couple from here, from Kansiva Reise Bracha, and he's getting ready for the Shabbos meal, and the father's holding one kid on one hand, and the other kid is holding on his left hand. I'm sitting on the chair waiting for him to come inside, and the little kid that's holding his left hand, he's like 4 years old, he's holding his father's hand. I noticed on the side of my eye, and he's not wearing a yarmulke. And the father picks up on it, and he tells his kid, "With the yarmulke, go get the yarmulke." What does the kid say? The kid says, "I don't want." So the father was kind of surprised as our response. Hello, stable. Yeah, a Jewish boy, he needs yarmulke. And the kid doesn't let go. He repeats, "I don't want to. I'm sitting over there, but I'm mixing in, but I couldn't hold myself back. And I sort of blurted out. I wasn't not directed to the kid, but generally to the direction of the child. Who asked you anyways? Hashem wants you to put on yarmulke. And then I froze when I'm mixing in with some other, I guess. Now what's more we're starting here now. But amazingly, the amazing thing is that instead of the kid continuing his "I don't wanna," his song suddenly changed. He asked his father, "1 second, I think yarmulke is in the dining room, the living room, whatever was there." And he ran to find his yarmulke. He comes back, tells his father he didn't find it. He asked his father. The father actually asked his father, "Help me find my yarmulke." Now the father has to pull this on the table. The father tries to help him find his yarmulke. He didn't want to leave the table to the father. The kid comes back to the yarmulke. I didn't hear a word. Just watching this. So this is something which is, you see it time and time again. So this is something we know it inherently is true, that every one of us as adults, and our children even more so, before they got spoiled, they have an inner desire to do what Eibishter wants. The kinder geschrien, the kid was screaming before, "I don't wanna," but the guy said the whole tone, I don't wanna. The guy said, you think it's like an immovable mountain here. The kid is not budging. "I don't want it." But the second he hears, the Eibishter wants it, suddenly he felt, he got it. Nobody forced him. He himself was able to overcome his horror. I think this is a good story to start off tonight. How do you come here? How do you come here and give a share about emunah betachon? What am I going to teach you about chinuch and emunah betachon? So let's go straight to a few sentences of the Rebbe, and let's start here and understand things straight from. I was hoping we would get some things printed. I sent it a little bit late, so you have to believe me when I'm reading it from the Pnim. I took 5 sichos from the Rebbe that brings out this nekuda, how the children have, our children have, and by extension, we're children also. We have an inner emunah that comes from the neshama, and that emunah is really what we're supposed to do. That neshama, that emunah that we don't have, that's where we're supposed to build all our strengths for simchas hachayim, all our strength for having betachon the Eibishter. You wonder, where do I have it from? They want to answer. The Eibishter gives us the neshama, and we reveal it to Torah. It's still the kudus that I've always told us that the emunah in the Eibishter, everything is Eibishter. We have in the Neshama, that's a chelik kamal mamish, and we reveal that Neshama through learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. So this is really the foundation. If we focus every part of the foundation to this, our lives will be a lot easier and a lot more simple. So we go to a sikha in Purim. This actually is a well-known sikha. So we'll take out the nakud over here. Let's try to build a thought process of how and to the child who we are, because we said the child having a passport if he's 5 years old, or if he's 55 years old, or 105 years old. It's not about the age on the passport, it's not the age of who we are. So it talks about Mordechai HaYehudi, Mordechai HaTzadik. He meets 3 boys coming out of Kamda, with a very, very abbreviated fashion. He meets 3 boys coming out of his Hasefa, coming out of Yeshiva, and he asks Sukkah, he says, give me the pasuk. Haman Rosh is watching this with his friends, and each one says a pasuk. The pasuk that we say after Aleinu, Altin Paratisim, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the idea of not being afraid in this world from the Shayim. Then you have the second one says, that even if there are those that are trying to hurt you, they shall make sure that with us. And finally, the third one, the older one said, that they will save us. That's it. Even when we get older. So the question obviously is, to remind everyone, I'm sure many of you learned this already before. But the bring of what's in the Quran over the Sikh that I was saying, it's Tashachavav that looks like this. Why was Mordechai became very happy and he went out, he put on a sack of Efer. So what was his excitement? What did he hear? If he felt it was a nevuah that everything would be okay, why did he have to put on a sack of Efer? Why did he have to go fasting? Why did he start crying? He said, oh, the Efer is going to help. So obviously it wasn't. After this event, it gave him koyach to keep on going and doing his afayta to be vatal because there's summer. What was going on over here? Emunah is the foundation of Klal Yisrael. Emunah is the foundation. We're all looking at the terrible tragedy that happened, and it's still going on in Florida. And there seems to be a few of these type of tragedies. That the tzad of the tragedies is that a building is a big, beautiful building, but the side is faulty and the beams don't hold the building. The beautiful building falls apart. You have bleachers allow people to stand on bleachers. If something is wrong with the foundation, the whole beautiful bleacher goes flying. Emunah is the foundation of everything who we are. And this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody sitting here or anybody listening. You say that the Chacham said that Emunah and the Eibush. Now, Emunah and the Eibush doesn't mean that the Eibush only means that the Eibush is somewhere up there and removed of the faket. The Emunah means that the Eibush is Mashgiach, the Eibush gives life, the Eibush creates every one of us, every massive wind is created by the Eibush, and therefore it's good. That's Emunah. This is they say this. A person can be busy doing Torah and mitzvahs the whole time, and the emunah is a bit schwach, and it's not the way it's supposed to be, or his understanding of what this is all about is not the way it's supposed to be. And the whole building is a fasting. The way physically it can happen by this. Emunah is how they say who we are. Mordechai Yehudi knew that the only way Haman was able to make a tzedakah was there was a begiya, there was something that the mother didn't bow down to the tzelem. He bowed down before. So I guess that's had made. So the touch, the very say that who we are, connection with the Eibush was compromised, or whatever I say it, was even only nice, and he didn't really believe it. But Mordechai didn't know that's the way Haman was able to make a gzeir against the Yidden. So he was wondering how could he awaken the emunah? How do you make this emunah? I want to use this hour we have. We're going to talk about how do you get this emunah out? Is it there? By these three psukim that the children told him, Utzaitz and Yusufa, Kimono Kel, and Altirim Pachapisim and Yusufa and Badzikna, all these psukim are 3 levels of emunah, going higher and stronger in understanding of the Eibush is with us. Once Mordechai saw that even children are talking like Yidden. They're talking with an emunah, not to be afraid, and he realized there's what works over here. If they're coming out of yeshiva and they're talking with emunah, then he's able to make the gzeira. First of all, he sees that the health of the Jewish nation is there. How do you see it gesund? First, he sees that the Eibush is why the reason why we're not afraid. Even natural weaknesses a person goes through, which is a person getting old. Eibush with us. Eibush with us. So that he knew that kids are going to come home and their children will inspire the parents inspire the children. The ikir is you have to know this emunah has to be brought back to life. Once he knew the emunah was there, then he went out, he took Sakfeifer, and he started doing tshuva, and he rounded up 20,000, he put together 20,000 children to make his Misraban, he learned to consider selfish, and everything we know from the beginning later. But it's all about why was he Samach? And why, that's why Hamarash, like I said, you're first going to get the children, because that is where our basis of Ayasayt, we have as emunah. So, we're all trying to make through this terrible goals. We're going through difficult goals. Everybody is struggling. I don't understand this. Whether it comes to parnasa, when it comes to health, when it comes to even raising children today is very difficult. But we have to try to get back on track. Pasha to focus on bringing out the emunah tahira that we have in ourselves and the emunah tahira that our children have. And once we have that, then we know that will be in this battle. There will be no more Hashem. As the Eibush saved Eden in the times of Purim, they will save us and Mashiach now. That's the first quarter. Then the second goes like this. There's a lot of discussion. What can the child take? And I want to say a few times in this that the child is not only a child that's 5 years old. We were talking about a child that's 55 years old. I mean, whatever. So there's another sikha in Pashat Vayera. This is another sikha that everybody knows about it. Again, we want to talk about it. We want to regale it. We want to bring us back, as he said. These are all smuggling sikhs from the Rebbe. That the Rebbe shows us the way. And it talks about the story with the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab came home, Pasha Vayera, and he was crying. And what was his? Why was he crying? He was crying because why didn't the Eibush reveal himself to him the way the Rebbe Rashab was a child? Why didn't he reveal to him as he built with the Rabbeinu? From there, I'm going to read this out loud. I hope you get a copy, but it didn't work out. So the Rebbe said the lesson from the story is like this. Not haste. I'm going to say it in Yiddish, and then you can say it in English, or whatever he said. As men darf mechanisch sein, a kind, as Göttlichkeit soll werden, als Teil von seinem Leben. There's something, Sachen, was dvorm a hufmesslei, bis as ihm soll stark verahren, was der Eibush, der weiß sich nicht zu ihm, in dem Eifen, wie hat man wissen zu haben. That means we have to be mechanisch a child that Göttlichkeit, the likus, godliness, should be for him something he loves. And if that's something he doesn't have, it should bother him at the same way that it bothered Avraham Avinu. So you're going to argue that Rambam says that when you speak to a child, you have to speak to him about physical things, candies. You have to give him things that he is in his level. And that's how you mechanic him to get to learn for the candy, and then later he realizes that learning itself is something important. So the Rebbe said this. That is taki true. But here the story is giving a new way of chinuch. The Rebbe is telling us that the Rebbe is revealing we have a certain kayach from our generation that we don't have to give him a child a candy in order for him to learn, and then he will later develop a love for the Eibush. The child himself now is able to understand the geschmack from Göttlichkeit. This is again a movie to Zicha. And I read it as never bothered. It's a clear thing that with this story, the Rebbe revealed us, and he actually opened up the tzina, opened up the flow of kayach, gave us the kayach as in a way of chinuch. As each now durch a chinuch to the boy through a proper chinuch, can each better sein the gidri teva. We're able to. The Rambam was talking about the general teva, how children are. Generally, that's the way it is. a child has to be mechunach first for candies, to things and sweets, until he gets to understand the beauty of Göttlichkeit. But here now, the Rabbeim gave us the kayach and angewöhnt that the child could be to a point where he's able to become accustomed to want ruchnis till he has a chukka gedela at the Eivish doesn't verweisen. And then listen to this. It doesn't that doesn't leave it there in words you can say, yeah, it's there, but what? This is 5 lines. Kind. Was im Art nicht was der Eivish verweisen. When you see a child that doesn't not bother, well, the Eivish is not revealing himself to him. So how does that happen? Is this? It's not because the child is not shaykhs to it, but because the mechanic, the teacher, is not talking to him in a way that the yitzim and alev. So here you have it. We have to understand we're living now in a time. We have the koyach paschat. We are able to enjoy. We are able to develop a time to enjoy Göttlichkeit. We have to just be able to mechanech ourselves. We have to find the right words that should explain to the child that's 5 years old and try to explain to ourselves to a point where we can actually enjoy doing a mitzvah, learning Torah, doing mitzvahs. And this is not something I had personally. This is why I want to start with the story. It's still a kid, but telling his father, "Don't put on the yarmulke." Go talk to him. Yeah, he heard from somebody maybe I saw him a year ago. He hears from a stranger sitting and tells him what the Eivish wants Hashem wants to put on a yarmulke. Literally wants to put on a yarmulke. So this is something which is achievable. We have to just believe, have the emunah in our Rebbe, in our teacher, that when we're told that the chinuch can be done in such a way, that's the way we want to have kids, that they give a geschmack, so then if you want to have a similar reference, there's a sikha in Chedek Vav Yisrael, where the Rebbe talks about Shemin as Hanir by Matan Torah. Yidden were able to see that what is heard and hear what that was seen. That you heard this word, but it's similar to the same thing. Rashi is talking to a Chamesh Mikra, and he's saying the Chamesh Mikra, Matan Torah, Yidden were able to see that which is heard. What does he say? What's the miracle? See that's heard. Seeing grasps Gashmis. When you see something, it becomes very real. When you hear something, Shmiya, you understand it. It's not lavdafka something that you can mamish physical, right? It's abstract. You hear an idea. Ruchnius, you hear music. So when you say Shem, Yerenis and Nishma, we said even saw by Matan Torah, the Eivish was this miracle. They saw that was heard. They saw by them, by Eden Matan Torah, by them the Inyan from which is usually heard. The Ruchnius was usually heard was an eighth of seeing it. They mamish saw Göttlichkeit. They saw it. So this Rashi says, interesting is that points out that Rashi says to this the Eden saw, that means you talk to a child is able to relate to the idea. You talk to him about Eivish, you talk to him about Ruchnius, it could be an Eivish for Shaliya. The other half, will shame us that child should hear. By him, what physical should be an Eivish of hearing. It doesn't really relate to physical, it's how the child can handle. But this part the child could handle. This is the idea. I want to show you a story like this. There's maybe you heard this guy's name. It's not a guy. There was a big Aspen, a war survivor. His name was Chaskel Besser. Chaskel Besser was the leader of Agudas Yisrael. Was one of the tactical positions he had, and he had a big theater from the left. I heard this the story from his son. His son came to visit me in the place called prison. And he shared with me this story. I think it's printed also, but I heard directly from his son. This son was somebody, but then I put him on his lap. He was sitting on his chair, and I actually put him on his lap, his father. And his grandson is truly blessed from this Montreal was very, very helpful. For my case, he wrote about it and he brought it to light. It's really blessed. So this his son used to come visit me. He told me a story like this. This Chaskel Besser had a friend. Took him maybe in the 1960s, and he had a friend, and he brought his son. He brought his friend. His friend had his sister was very sick. So Chaskel said, "Let's go to the Bab Sherev get a bracha." He got an appointment, and he didn't. The friend didn't want to go himself, so Chaskel went inside with him to cover up. The Rebbe, so the brother says to the Rebbe, my sister's very sick. This is very very bad. The Rebbe asks, his brother is your sister religious? I said. So she said no. So the Rebbe asked her, should I Shabbos paint? So he said, yeah. So the Rebbe's time to him was, why did you just tell me she's not religious? Should I Shabbos paint? It's interesting. He doesn't mean, you like Shabbos, what do you do? You affirm me, you affirm me, you have a Shabbos. We come to Zagen, we better think emunah has to be dafki in Elam Atzilus. I'm afraid, it's in Shabbos. Shabbos if the so he told her, give a bracha. He told her before she likes Shabbos, she should give tzedakah. Give a bracha for him. Then the Rebbe turns around to Katzke, who's staying there the whole time, and he asks him, "Now, do you have any questions you want to ask? Do you have any questions you want to ask?" He said, "Actually, he does. Has a question. What was his question? This Katzke Besser was from Poland." And he was from the Heim. He was at Radomsk Chassid. Radomsk was one of the big Chassidists in Poland. And most of them got murdered by the Nazi Machshemon. And he was a survivor. And Radomsk Chassidus, he wrote the Shleim, I think his name was Sefer. So he says what bothers him. He comes to his question was like this. Question was, he comes to 770. And all he sees is Sforim from Chabad. So the Tanya says, how come I don't see the good for the Mitzvah? How come I don't see a safe for the Mitzvah? How come I see it? He was a little bothered by this. And he shared it with the Rebbe. Now, that's obvious. So Chaskel says the Rebbe gave him a moshel. The Rebbe answered him in a way, not only answered his question, but he used the moshel. The Rebbe used the moshel, which really is something that he really related to at that time. So he spoke to him very much. What was it? He had lost his father shortly before the story. His father passed away from an infection. And he went to the hospital. They gave him penicillin. And later the infection did not go away and overcame the first and he passed away. So he always felt, this Chatzkel always felt that had the doctors saw the problem early and they would have given a higher dose of penicillin, would have saved his father. So the marshal that ever used, this marshal that ever used, he said like when of all the sites a person would get a sickness, get a bacteria, it was deadly. Then the doctors found a thing called penicillin, and they figured out that as a 10% penicillin it kills this bacteria. Then the bacteria got smarter, and 10% didn't work anymore. So they had to up it up 20%. And that worked. And they helped people stay alive. Then the bacteria got smarter. So they had to up to 30% to keep ahead of it. So until they had to give them a higher dose that killed all the bacteria, they had to up it up to kill the bacteria. So the Rebbe says that all the citizens, obviously, when they ate Sahara, and the Eberster had to be Megala Chassidus to fight the Sahara. But initially, it was enough 10%, it was enough a little bit of a lower level. Then the Yitzhak got smarter, so you needed a stronger gili of Chassidus to kill the heavy bacteria. Then Yitzhak got stronger, so you had to go. So the Rebbe said Chassidus Chabad is 100% penicillin for all ailments. So that's why, in other words, that's Chashon. And he accepted the answer because he realizes that Chashon not talking about we don't learn other citizens because. I heard last night. I heard a tape after from the Rosh Hashiva from California. So he was saying personally a story with him. He had written to the Rebbe about his challenges in life. He's a bacher, and obviously he's going to begin, and he's a very big going. So he was always learning. He still had his own challenges. So and he tried to find answers in time. The Rebbe said to him, if you have a question, what have to handle any of your problems, look into the Mafteh in Tanya, so you can find any problem you have, and any problem you have, you find the answer in any time. What's it that? So we're given, the part is we're given the ability to be able to take the emunah that we so badly need, the talk that we so badly need today, and how to apply it, how to take it out. And the idea to say that children, this is one idea what we got, that children are not shaykhs to this. You see clearly, it's not so. It's not so. A child, you have to have the ability to open the chassidus. Gives you the ability to understand. You're talking to an neshama. You're talking to a child. You're not just talking to a person who has a brain, a smaller brain, a small level of understanding. You're talking to a child. The child has neshama. The Rebbe teaches us about Eibishter. The Eibishter is everything, and they teach that every has neshama. And the child has the Yerusha, that same neshama that we have. So when we talk to the child about emunah, it's not talking to something that's way above him. I can't think very, 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 very well easy to understand whether he's a child. Whether he's a child, Rishonim, or a child. So this is what he's saying over here. That today, the Eibishter. Okay, and then now I want to shift gears. I want to go to the next level. The munah is brought out to the Torah mitzvahs, and the means we have to take the mitzvah. There's one of the stories that I encountered this guy in a place called prison. I found a guy called Ghost. His nickname, every day had nicknames. His name was Ghost. And Mamish, this Nakuda we're talking about played out with him Mamish in a very big way. In that when he first met me, how did he know he was Jewish? I saw always walk around the American cities. And he had just brought into the place called prison, a newcomer, and he sees me walking by wearing the yarmulke and sits flying out at the size of my pants. So he gives a scream out to some of the guys standing around him. Hey, look, the guy there has strings hanging out of his pants. He's laughing for my tzitzis. And for a minute, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I keep on walking, maybe I didn't hear it, it's behind me. Or I turn around and face him off. David said, put in my mind, I have to right away stop it. For a year and a half, it was going good. Nobody bothered me. First time I was challenged, so I turned around to this guy, that's taller than me. And I told him, hey, what's your problem? Like, I'm not going to fight, but you don't look for fights in a place like prison, but like, how you talking? He realized that he was Pagaya, he with me. So he started backing off. And he says, no, I wasn't in front of you. Actually, I know where they are. So what are they? And he says, yeah, that's it. They're tzitzis, right? But the way he said tzitzis, I realized that he's a Yiddish guy. That's how I realized he's a Yid. So I looked at him and said, you Jewish? He says, yeah. What's his story? It's not, this is going to be on the YouTube. Maybe I lost track of who he is. I forgot his real name. But the reason he got the nickname of Ghost is because he was Mamash like a Shin Dalad. He says he learned in Avatera, and he was very vild. He went to the streets. He became part of a gang, and then became leader of a gang, and then became a leader of a Mexican gang. And to make a long story short, he wound up in State prison for already before I met him 10 years, in the highest security level that I was in. That's the highest one is in the level thing. And now it was a year left. For his sentence, they brought him down from the high down to medium to acclimate him to society. Everything's, of course, on paper. So they still wanted this ghost to meet me. I should meet the ghost, however you want to say it. So now that I found out that he's Jewish, I say on the inside, he's looking for a way out again on film, and the daven with him, learn with him, and Baruch Hashem for the next whatever how many months it was, I don't remember exactly, 9, 10, 12 months. I take a spot with him, and most of the time I would ask him for a film, he would say yes. And sometimes he would tell me he was very busy. That's the most amazing thing I'll never forget. One time I couldn't find him, so I ran up to his cell on the 5th level. He opened the door, his cell is as bare as he wanted to be. There's nothing there, it's just a steel cement. He's lying on this bed on his mat, looking into space. Yeah. He said, "Ghost, yeah. You want to put on film?" So he says, "Rabbi, I'm too busy right now." It's busy. I was just watching. Of course, if I would think we said that Mamash Asik Sabin for my marriage. Aber film we want to put on that day. I could put more time on. What's the point of the story? One day he walks in. I'm sitting over there in there's one of the moments in that forget. So I'm sitting in this, remember the cell number was 219. Sitting over there, he walks in and he asks me, "Hey, Rabbi, I want to talk. You busy?" I said, "Yeah." No, I said, "No." I go, "I want to talk to you." He says, "What do you want?" He tells me, "I want to put on film." Just shaka. All these months that I met him, he never ever came to ask me. I always had to hunt him down, find a stand by the door and come back to exercise. Bit him, came to me. So of course I put on film, but he looked terrible. He looked totally anxious, strung like a wire. You can see. I mean, it's a young guy's face. He was that's not himself. So I asked him, "What's the problem? You look like you just saw a ghost or something. What's problem?" He tells me, "I really want to find out what prompted him to come put on that film. That's the point of the whole story." And amazingly, he says to me like this. He says, he got notified 3 days earlier that he's going home, let's say, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And suddenly he was hit with this panic that he can't sleep at night. He can't sleep. Why? I can't say that. I told him, you're going home in 3 weeks, make a kiddush, so you'll be happy. They told me I'm going home in 3 weeks at that point in time. I would have been excited. I was like, "Are you kidding?" So he says to me, "Don't laugh." He says, I'm very nervous, but who am I going to go out? Who am I going to be with? What's going to be? I said, I don't want to meet my old friends. So he's looking for, so I says, this Mr. Toffee, he made knives and secret pockets. This guy was out of his mind. He came to the power. He was like a real rough guy. This Mr. Rough, the guy, midtime I can't sleep at night. He says, I fall asleep 5 minutes, I wake up. Mom is a shop. I think he can't. He looked at it. So he wanted to find some looks on that. What he come to do? He came to run through. He knew that in this place, this insane asylum called prison, if you can't sleep at night, you go to the 6 psychiatrists there, or 7 maybe. I once counted 6 and 1 7, so I'm not sure exactly. And they give you a prescription right away. You can get schlafen. But he didn't do that. He obviously, over all the months I still put on film with him, the few times I put on film with him, he had to feel a certain benefit on nefesh that he came to relive. Now that he was strung out, he came to relive it. So this was a memory I had from Bringen. I've seen by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was explaining the power of mitzvahs. And this again, we think about mitzvahs. Mitzvahs is not a ritual, it's not a ceremony, it's not something Jews do because that's what we always did in that sense. Mitzvahs is tafsir chibur. We do a mitzvah, we do a mitzvah, we refine ourselves, and by extension the world around us, depending how we do the mitzvah, obviously. That's what we're getting into. When we do a mitzvah, nefesh, the only way we do mitzvah nefesh is because we do it because Hashem said so, meaning we're doing it from the essence of our being, that we connect with himself, not hide all the doing. That's a mitzvah. Even this goes. I wish I knew Rebbe's name. I think maybe Rosenberg. I haven't seen this yet. This goes had to feel that connection. They never get an emotion from a baby. When a baby is born, a baby doesn't know what food is. A baby never is told that when you get hungry, you can ask for food. It doesn't happen like that. The mother knows that when a baby is hungry, it's crying. Why is the baby crying? The baby is crying because it has a pain in the stomach, it has discomfort in the stomach, it's anxious, it doesn't feel right. So it cries. The mother knows it didn't eat, it gives it food, the pain goes away, the kid goes back to sleep. It stops crying with the phone, right? Same thing with the neshama. If a Yiddish neshama is not doing a mitzvah, it's going to have pain and it'll be anxious. And the answer to that is Pasha, do a mitzvah. Yeah, you've stuck it. You learn Pratzul. Light Shabbos candles. Keep Shabbos. Zay b'simcha. That the mitzvah alone, now the mitzvah is food for the neshama. That a person can walk around, he doesn't, the same way a baby doesn't know that hunger is until years, months and months later, until it figures out the connection between the pain in the stomach, that type of discomfort, and food and how they correlate. And then asks for food, the same way sometimes a Yid doesn't realize that the anxiety that he is going through, and the fear that he's going through, and the depression he's going through, simply he has to get himself back in sync. There's a neshama deibishka. You can't solve a neshama hunger with gashmis. You can't solve the neshama gashmis. You can take a vacation from here, how long ever you want to take it. People had a vacation for the last year. And Corona, I got a vacation, this is the hey, take ein Geld, und so du willst. And you have a vacation. You can't solve a neshama problem. Forget it. If you're not going to deal with Teda Mitzvah, so that's what Teda Mitzvah is. Teda Mitzvah is, and this is part of Chinuch. When we tell a child, they ask the Teda Mitzvah, it's not because as it we talk. We talk about B'sayid, the Yaya Neshama, are you doing the mitzvah, you're collecting David, that Hashem wants it. And this child understands it. And that's those mitzvahs that you do without psharas. Forget, do a mitzvah, Mesiras Nefesh, this is straight out of the Maivat Tzav, if you want to know. Many places. They have I printed a picture here from Chanukah Chelik Aleph, you have over here, that after the doing a mitzvah without any psharas, Chanukah's advice, Chanukah's mishkanos, with chinuch, your children need a chinuch, the chinuch has to be after without psharas. And when a father lives up Shabbos, when a child sees that the father is keeping a Shabbos on Shabbos, on Chachmas. Yeah, the thing is a time and a place. I sent it like on the result. I go upon him. He writes about the kids I saw adaptment the Jeff McGann in the Scott on Shabbos. From child, we're talking about emunah. How do you get emunah out from a child? How do you get the emunah out from a child? You teach him to do a mitzvah of psharas. It's one of the things that saved me. Was this chinuch that I had? The chinuch that I had, not a young. Our chinuch was a mitzvah without psharas. I hid the mitzvah. I hid the mitzvah means I caught the mitzvah. Your child can tell in a second if you do the mitzvah because you have to, or if you're doing the mitzvah because you have a technique. How do you get a chayes in it? Think for a second. What I'm doing, I'm keeping Shabbat. I have a Shabbat study. The Shabbat study was a good time for it. The best time it all ties together because on Shabbat you have to show me your seder. Yeah, that means everybody around the table has a greater sensitivity to kedusha. That's the time to give over. So your child are geschmack in the Nishkeit. But you not to use the time for Sambus, idle talk, forget. Use that time, use a place. You come into a Kedusha. What's Kedusha? Kedusha is not tangible in the sense you can describe it. Kedusha is felt by a child. He has a neshama, you can feel Kedusha. So when you go to shul and you don't talk, and you treat the shul different than you see somebody who will learn. You treat him different than somebody else because he learns. The child in 2 seconds picks this up. It doesn't take a lot. And in the same way that Mr. Ghost of the Verstanden, he was desperately looking for a moment of menucha. I said, I'm here a pella. I had this many times, but until today I must have had it hundreds of times. I can't get out of my mind. Now a guy who lived in the streets of Florida, in the heavy, hardest gangs. I mean, Mexican gangs, he wound up. It wasn't for jaywalking. It was jaywalking. I shouldn't say that. That he wound up in the high security prison, and he was tough even in prison. The guy once showed me he made 2 knives in the secret passage. In a few months, knives. He's already somebody will start with him. He showed him a knife. He's stab him. He wasn't the average cat. But he looked at Nefesh. Even he was able to understand. And that's what he came to do. He came to do a mitzvah because he knew that moment of a mitzvah, he suddenly, how did he know? He felt it. He has a neshama. So if he can feel it, why can't we feel it? Otherwise, we have to get away from thinking that a mitzvah is like a seichel because the Rebbe Rayat said like this. The whole world says, I can do a mitzvah of Puka with the same chayes of Mishpatim. He doesn't put fakir. I can do a mitzvah of a mishpat with the same chayes of Puka. After the mitzvah that you don't want to do, and after the mitzvah that you say said not now, and after the mitzvah that says I don't understand it. If you do that mitzvah, why? How can you do that mitzvah? Because that's you're showing the look of the Eibush who wants you to do it, and exactly the Eibush. That's the biggest chayes you can have. You go through the soil in the life, right? And the soil is a chukah. Every person is given their soil. Every person is given their challenge of life. They can't for the life of them. They can't understand why they have to go through the hardship, and the other guy next to them doesn't have to. And the answer is this week's parasha. Everything has his his neshama, his connection, his job. We will stop for a second and think, emunah the Eibush gives me. I'm in the neshama, I'm connected to the Eibush. And to tell the mitzvahs, I'm revealing my neshama, and the Eibush that gives me a shlichus in this world to do. So forget it. Mit the mold. the ganze Schwierigkeit turns into a mission. And you're happy to do it. It's hard, but you're happy to do it because you're accomplishing something. You're doing what you accomplish. You're connected to the. So this is all the inyanim where we talk about chinuch. How do you teach your children to teach yourself that? Enjoy your mitzvah. So finally, I think the fifth one about the nefesh is on this nakuda. This is Vayera. That essentially we want to talk about the Akedah. I want to mention this. And I want to go to a mimer from the and say that I don't know what of questions. We first got out a mimer. I printed the whole mimer. I learned it, but I didn't come out though. Okay. The before the Akedah, Avram Avinu lived in Plishtim for 25 years. Remember the Rashi there? In Eretz Plishtim, he lived a good life. We hit the Eishel. In other words, there's no redifus. Avram Avinu had it. The time was good. There was no nefsenis. It was like before with Melchamas and Mises. But what was he doing there? He was doing tzedakah with the Mesilas Nefesh. He was giving chasadim to everybody, giving away not only what they needed, even more than they needed. They gave everybody not only the bare minimum of food. They gave, in order to do more than the bare minimum, means you have to do the highest. Says the Rabbi, that 25 years in the country like America, we have in a time nobody's chasing us. And that is them with mitzvahs, with higher than our agbolas, that prepares us. That prepared Avraham Avinu for the Akedah. And when he suddenly was told he has to take his son Yitzchak for an Akedah, he had to get to do it. Why? Because he lived that in the land of Plishtim. He was not that aged. In a place where he had everything he needed. In a place, but he did mitzvahs in the Eifim, give out tzedakah higher than it was demanded of him. That prepared him to be able to go to the same. If you want to know what can prepare us, we talk to your child, and your child will say, "Yeah, that's exactly what I want to do." Do mitzvahs. It's hidden. Do a mitzvah in Mesilas Nefesh. Don't just do as each taking shulchan aruch and cut it off. So let the children self-see. We first enjoy doing the mitzvah because the mitzvah starts in the chibur. And then we have a reference. We'll give reference back to Torah, and I'll finish with this mime over here. Right, the beginning of Torah 8 is a mimer that starts out. I don't know why I didn't come out bold. I don't know. I'll have to give over to you. I pulled it out. It's supposed to be that I can't reference it. You'll never see it. The Rebbe says. The Rebbe says like there's a very interesting word. The Eibishter kicked out Adam Arishan from the Gan Eden. It says the passage of Vayimer Hashem Elokim. Ein Adam Hayek Achim Menu, Odas Rav, Ve'ata Peyishlach Yodei. What was that? Now that Adam Arishan knows he knows to understand good and bad. Give me 5 more minutes and I'll open the question. This is a very powerful understanding in ourselves and the world around us and what we're doing to ourselves today. Because Adam Arishan has das. So now he knows a different. He knows about Torah and Ra. Yeah, now can't be Gan. Well, why not? He says, "Emunah" means Lamaila. They distinct to Malachim. Yeah, Malachim, and they also not in Ra. So why is it that when Adam Arishan knows Torah and Ra, he cannot be Gan? When Malachim are Gan, so what was the Avram of the Maria? So the answer in a nutshell like this. The idea about Tevera is the idea that the Malach knows of Tevera. He just knows, but that's not that the Ra touches him. He knows about the Ra. He knows the market. In a general way, he knows there's a world of flippers that do not have a Hashem. But it doesn't affect their Torah. It's not a city. Gan Eden is a place of kedusha. So just knowing that there's a world of flipper doesn't interfere you being in Gan Eden. But a person is built as a pnimi. If you want to know all the details, you can look at the Rambam. You can't read the paper. You can open the Torah. That's right at the beginning in Bereshis, and that's how the daf is daf hey on the beginning. A person is a pnimi. when a person learns something, internalizes it. And then, when he internalizes it, his Teva Ra becomes not separate entities, it becomes intertwined. That means his Teva is being affected by the Ra that he just understands. Before Chet Das, called the Marisha, was higher than the whole year from Chet. The Mele was year from Dusha. The Mele, he had no Chet Ra. When he ate from Chet Das, now it wasn't just he knew about Ra. The Ra actually became intermixed with his Teiv. So now he can't understand Teiv without it being affected by Ra. And by him being affected by Ra, and if he can live forever, that means he's going to make the Ra live forever also, because the Ra became part of him. So he has to get out of Gan Eden, and now he has to cook it out of the system. And that's the Aveda of Aveda Sapir. He has to get out of his system. What's the point? What is this? What is the thing? A person is not a computer. I think we'll all agree. Not with our feelings only. A person, a computer has the capacity to put everything in its file. It can take an information and file it on the Kedusha. It can take information and file it on the computer. And there's two types of places: the place, the the place, and the mistake. Not have a Kedusha. So a computer can do that. A person can't do that. When a year goes and he learns, he gets to know something which is klipa, it affects the way he's able to understand Kedusha. The person affects him. And if you think, Mamash now we're learning Rambam, and now you understand why he is not allowed to learn even these things of Goyim. He said you're not allowed to learn any of the books that how the Goyim think and how the Goyim understand things. Don't learn it. Why not? You're trying to hide information from me. This is the deal. Because we are pnimi. When we take in information, we can't compartmentalize and say, the morning I look at my Mercedes, I'm flying high. And in the afternoon, I want to Google and search up an idea in what's it called? I think it's called mindfulness, which is rooted in the Torah. And to think that somehow, I'll give you an example, or ideas from Aristotle, and that to think that's not going to interfere with the Kedushas that I read tomorrow. It explains that the Torah tells us that a person wants to know Das Torah, he internalizes, gets intermixed, and he can't separate it. He could get it out of the system. The Rebbe explains later, he could get it, but it's a big avoid to get out of your system. You can't easily get out of your system. Because the Ra becomes part of the way you think. Somehow, some way, the theist, how you're going to say something is lose its purity. How is it negaya to our discussion tonight about teaching emunah and the talking like this? Our children, for sure, are pure. They're pure. Allowing our children to internalize or hear ideas that are not kedusha is partially hurting them. And then you wonder, how come kids today, you talk to them and it flies over. It's something, the story I started this night when the kid was 4 years old. But when children are exposed to ideas about self and they're exposed about ideas, old ideas that whatever it is, not enough time tonight to get into it, and our yeshivas, so allow them to internalize, and we think this is kedusha, and this is social studies, whatever, mental studies. If they conflict, if it's Ra, if it's coming from Klipa, the Torah is teaching us that it's affecting the way, not only the way they understand things as an American, it affects the way they think as a Jew. So next time you want to tell him that Hashem wants you to wear a yarmulke, the 4-year-old kid that's like, he ran to get a yarmulke. But as you get older, as you internalize more and more, it makes me feel happy. This, now, I don't feel like it. I'm going through a hard time. I'm under stress. I'm very anxious. I don't feel good. All these Sachen, mit the Mol, it's about the person, about the Eibishter. That's what happens. That's that. What's that? In Tanya says, Ra is anything that's not the Eibishter, is Ra. That's not Eibishter. If it's not Kedusha, it's Ra. The world is divided into three parts: Kedusha, Klipus, Nega, and certain players before a person touches it. Once a person touches it, it's either Kedusha or Klipus. There is no pattern. In Yiddishkeit, there's no pattern. There's no middle. Before he goes into the world and he has three realms. He has a realm of Kedusha, Mitzvahs. He has a realm of Isurim, the Raises, the Rabbanon, Minhagim. That's there, right? And then he has the Rishus. He has the B'Srega. Once the Yid touches it, he uses it. Then there's no three anymore. It's either he pulled up the Kedusha or he pulled it in the Shochet Meis, and by extension, that pulls him down there too. So the point is, we spoke about a lot. I wanted to finish off with this thought. We spoke a lot about what a emunah is, how a emunah we have from the neshama, we have it inherently, how through Torah mitzvahs we reveal our neshama, and our emunah gets stronger. We're able to have the strength of doing Torah mitzvahs from our neshama through the emunah which we all have. But along with that, we also have to understand that there's Torah in the world, and if we get involved with Torah, we're not computers. We can't compare whatever the word is. Yeah, thank you. We can't do that. And therefore, we're actually putting it together. And if you look at the bottom of the list page on this, only one more thing I want to show you. And this is straight from Torah Eir, from the Alter Rebbe. He brings like this: the Kotei Torah from the Maharizal. He was going, and all the Mauritian before the Chet was going in the Echolis. Other Mauritian was even higher than the level of the Rashbi. The whole different level. Because he was the Yitzhak HaKadosh himself. The male of Echolis had tumor, they don't see what happens. He didn't want to look in there. Not even look. Kalal. So what did the Nachash do? They see how Nachash, the Nachash suggested to him, Shalkaponim, Yabit, he should look. What's happening there? So just surfing the web, give a look. He's walking to the Echolis. Give a look. What's the deal? Says that he's out. Nichshal, this is how he tripped. The Nafal, the Taib, that's how he developed the Taib to them, and that's the Chain Shemati that he brings to that basic from anybody. I think it's a very powerful piece over here that so fit to put at the end of the Maimon. After explaining that the right before that, he talks about how did Nachash know about the Yidei Tevra? How did he know the thing? He comes from there. The Nachash himself comes from Tevra, and he knew that this problem that the person had in his makeup, he can't just know about Ra. The second he knows about Ra, he develops a type to it. The second he just looks in there, he has a connection to it that pulls him down. And by the way, this is one I saw this, and I saw this many times. I guess I never really focused on it enough. But in the 8.5 years I was in special prison, had Hashem gave me the cake never to look at the all these boxes are up there playing away. Okay, the Nuchsa Nefesh was able to be achieved. And the Munda B'Tachon is after by not looking, not getting involved with that, and getting my information strictly from Kedusha. There's enough said and discussed, and we spoke about if any issue or nafshis that you have a whole Tanya, you have a whole specific cases for all Nigla and Chassidus, and who has to go to Aristotle B'Chavera to find out how to deal with Yiddish English for Medela. Okay, we'll stop over here. So the Chaim, maybe they should bench everybody with Hagul Shleimer, which comes the discourse of Mud legal of Israel, and obviously we all have a mother we want Mashiach now, and every Mashiach now, the Chaim. Officially, it's like a few minutes here for questions and answers. So if there's any questions, hopefully there's answers. See, I said it so well, there's no questions. That's some higher. Okay, the Rebbe says, "Now go there. How come there's only the initials at the end? You ever heard that one? You have Arba Bon, right? You have a Chochem, you have a Rosh, you have a Tamish Lishel. How come there's only the initials at the end? Who's worse? The guy can't ask a question. A little baby is worse than the Rosh who's fighting you. In lineup, there's a Chochem, Rosh, Tam, it should be a Chochem, Tam, additional Rosh. But why is the additional at the end so seemingly the line that he can't? So the answer is very simple. That the additional Lavdafke is a little baby. It could be an adult. It could be a person Lavdafke. Somebody doesn't do Tayag mitzvahs. A person does keep all Tayag mitzvahs. He has no question. The reason he has no questions is nothing bothers him. The Eibishter wants him to do it. He gets up in the morning, goes to school, he davens, he learns his shir, and he's off to the races. The Eibishter wants him to stop and daven mincha, he davens mincha. He wants him to daven meida before sleep, he davens meida. But to bother him, so I guess whatever I spoke, I'm mashing myself, no questions. So the Eibishter helps us on good, and thank you very much. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, mine. Okay. Huh? Oh, so the many. This is obviously time more than you can count. The many people that came up to the Rebbe and asked him for a bracha, some for nasa, some for help, some for shidduchim, and the many people that ever answered that they should learn Shara B'tachon. And the strength of B'tachon, as the Rebbe explains in many psichics, the Rebbe discusses this and explains it, that B'tachon itself is the gula, is the way, the keli for getting the yeshua you want, is trusting Hashem will do. Now, one of the biggest challenges with B'tachon is, as is with emunah, and we saw tonight, you talk to a Jew about emunah. He says, what's the problem? I have it. It's true. You talk to him about B'tachon, he says, of course I have. I trust him. And then the conversation stops very quickly. But that's what the Rebbe was saying. You learn Shara B'tachon. In order to really understand what B'tachon is, B'tachon is an avodah. It takes 5 hakdamas to have real true B'tachon.
Forgot my thing.
You have B'tachon.
Forgot my thing.
It's true in the sense of Mitzad Yeshama. Like he says, have emunah. I have faith in God. Do mitzvah.
I left on the table.
God understands me. I don't. Me and God. So I have to still do same thing in order to be able to live properly. And for the B'tachon to bring down to Yeshua, you have to have. It doesn't mean positive thinking. B'tachon expresses itself with positive thinking, but the roots, why you think positive. Not because positive thinking has its proven scientific things that it affects the world around it, which you think how to explain it. Even if the saying has a point, but that's the B'tachon within the realm of nature. B'tachon means trusting in Hashem with higher nature and bringing upon yourself in the Torah that's higher nature. That's why it is, even if it's massive.
These are pink. Never mind. I thought they went back there. Never mind. I'm not walking that far out. Please hang on.
What my thing says about that. But what it's talking about, after you have something to save you out of the Torah, when they should some put into the Torah.
Want to learn Rambam? You did Rambam today?
So,
Sit for a few minutes and hang out.
so this is about the chapter on the fourth service.
I'm going to do the same thing.
This is Okay, so somebody wrote a question down over here. How to keep one of the toughest scroll with all the bad things going on in the world? Huh? How are you supposed to answer this question? You're supposed to justify the bad things. Emunah is, by the way, Emunah, first of all, precisely because of bad things or things that happen in the world that are very, very painful. That's the reason you should have the tough day, to get out of it. That's the one answer. The second part of the answer. The first answer, the emunah is exactly precisely for those times we can't understand. A yid who has, every yid has pure faith, emunah, the Eibush that knows that the Eibush is higher than understanding, and to look for an explanation for certain things is not achievable. Certain things the Eibush allows us to see the explanation during the time, before the time, or after the time. Certain things we don't. But emunah, by definition, means. I like to go back to the story from the Rebbe Rayatz. I think it's a very important story about emunah. Famous story when the Rebbe Rayatz was arrested and taken before Yibei Stam was born. The Rebbe was arrested 7 times. So this time was before the 7th one. He was brought into the interrogation room, and he was asked questions where he was. They wanted him to divulge names and who was doing it, and of the different supporters of who was the teachers of the different ways of the many yeshivas and big parts he was making. So he wouldn't tell him that. So the guy pulled out a gun, he points it to the Rebbe, and he says to the Rebbe, "This little toy made a lot of people talk, or change them to talk." Yeah. And the Rebbe famously answered that this toy can only scare somebody who has one world and 2 gods. Somebody has 2 worlds and 1 god is not afraid of this toy. And the officer put away the gun. Obviously, this is a very inspiring story. It shows, but I remember by Irgun, Khan extended the story in a very, very deep way, which is you can take this in every situation in life you have. And he and like I said, when a Rebbe says a story, there's a lot of limit going on. So what did Rebbe mean when he said a person who has 1 world and 2 gods is afraid? The person who has two worlds and 1 god is never afraid. Well, the 1 world part you understand. Of course, if you have 1 world, and the guy's pointing a gun at you, and you're afraid he's going to shoot you, and if he does shoot you, you lost everything. You got afraid. If you have 2 worlds, you get shape because if he shoots you, you have a second, you have a backup. You have no problem, right? But that explains the first part. But they never did it. He said, if somebody has 2 gods, the guy is afraid. And somebody who has 1 god is never afraid. What's with that? How does that enter the story and why? And explain this. What does two gods mean? People have many gods. There's 2 gods. You have a god of rain, the god of wind, a lot of gods going on in many people's life. The god of money, the god of political power. Everybody has their god. Yeah. What's this 2? 2 means like this. In order to explain good things and bad things that happen in the world, people neatly developed a 2 god theory. Obviously, it's a bit disorder, which says that there's a god, there's a good god, there's good things, and there's a bad guy that does bad things. So if the good things are happening, you ascribe it to the good God that you're worshiping, and the bad things comes from the other guy. So if bad things happen, it means there was a stick of food going on. Huh? You can't blame the good guy. That's it. So such a person is always afraid. If a person is serving 2 gods, and he's going with a good guy, and suddenly a gun is pointing on him, you have to made him come up because it looks like the power suddenly shifted, the power shift, and suddenly the bad guys in control. Is he afraid? But the Rebbe Rayatz says a person who believes in 1 God is never afraid, because he knows whatever is going on is coming from 1 God. And the Eibush is a Rachman, and the Eibush is a Teiv, and the Mela, once you know it's coming from this, so the same way yesterday before the gun was pointing on you, you were serving the Eibush, you were doing the you were and you weren't afraid. Now, the gun is pointing at you. Nothing happened. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. The same Eibush is making a gun pointing at you, and you just keep on going, doing what you got to do. Forget it. But you not getting afraid, you can maintaining your simcha and doing the mitzvahs, that takes away that Messiah, that facade that's making you try to make you believe there's a second power in the world. So this question about how to keep emunah b'tachon strong is fakir. Emunah is a koyach, it's a real koyach that comes from the neshama. It's not seichel. Emunah will make something. Emunah is more real than seichel. People think that we have seichel. That's real. If you understand something, that's real. Emunah is imagination. Seichel is limited. Something you couldn't understand. Emunah, even when you can't understand, Emunah is even strong. When the Emunah and the Eibishter are stronger, that whatever is happening from the Eibishter, and therefore we have to maintain our Avodas Hashem, the Avos Hashem, Yirus Hashem, and believe that the Mashiach is coming. And Faket, this is just we're going straight to Avil Shleima. And Faket, B'tachon means that since the Torah is coming from the Eibishter wants our B'tachon, we're going to get out of it. I had 3 questions come up. And is B'tachon also Ruchnis in Yana Shemaya? It's my Aveda. The answer is, if you look at B'tachon, the answer to that question is also that it shayches every mitzvah is divided into 3 parts. There's the Bechira, the mitzvah, like the one to the mitzvah, and the Asisa mitzvah. The Bechira and Asisa mitzvah, that is up to you, it's your Aveda. But to be able to do the mitzvah, then you have to have a B'tachon. The Eibishter will give you the ability to do it. So, for example, if a guy is in a place called prison, if you want to do the mitzvah, and he can choose to do the mitzvah, but he doesn't have a still, he can put it on. He has Aveda to fight, to want to do the mitzvah and fight for the mitzvah and to actually get it. That's B'tachon the Eibishter will get it to him. I gotta say, Baruch Hashem, I never missed one day putting on through making it here. And I always thank the Eibishter for it. Many times throughout the whole thing that they took it away, they won't give it to me. So it was fakir. It was the fighting for it, and the way a person was able to fight in such a situation that the Eibishter saw that I really wanted it. So the Asiya, the B'tachon the Eibishter made the Asiya possible. How did you? Okay, how do I don't say the last question. How do you maintain focused mental strength? A yid has. How do you maintain focused mental strength? It's a storim, the mashpia, and the answer is yes. The answer is through storim, to learning. The learning Torah is Talmud Torah. The most important thing we can do is to learn, because how much a person thinks that he has it understood. The next day when he wakes up in the morning, the Torah is Adam again. The Avodas Hashem never changes. It's not that a person can learn about emunah and have a strong emunah learn about B'tachon Eibishter, and then feel that he won't be attacked by Torah and just try to throw questions and problems on it. Faket. Every day is a new sun, new Yitzhara, and so therefore, I Baruch Hashem in the school, in this crazy, in this insane institution, they gave everyone a lack. Small little the Talmud Telekom, like it says in Tanya, the achdus and the chibur that you make with Eibishter, the yichud you make with doing is English shayah. So every time you do a mitzvah, every time you learn, you're infusing yourself with a connection with Eibishter that's forever. And suddenly you find koyach you never knew you had. Every time you do a mitzvah, if a person goes through the whole idea, you write a letter to the person is sick. What do I ever tell them? Check your mezuzah. What does a mezuzah have to do with the physical illness? By a yid it does. That's exactly the point. By a yid, his emunah and his b'tachon, his mitzvah has a shaychus to b'tachon also. So it's not that there's a. We talk about it so many times. When it comes to mamish living it, somehow I don't know where is the disconnect of sheichnish. In Matan Torah was a chibur mile and mata. The idea is being the get down this world. So obviously, when we do the Torah mitzvahs, we're bringing peace upon ourselves, simcha upon yourself, and the upon yourself. What is the hard to understand? And this is what Torah mitzvahs is. How do you get the Eibishter? How do you go up to Torah mitzvahs? The biggest present she gave us was Torah mitzvah. So we learn Torah. You have over here every Wednesday, every 2 times a week. Come to learn. It's not just to fill your time. You better do it. Come and learn. Fakert, when you show David to have a minute free, instead of going out and filling a cup, I'm going to use it to learn a mind, to learn about the to learn a mishnais, to learn a Perek. That's what we do with it. So what are you showing? You're showing yourself and you're showing your children around you, and you have a minute. You learn Torah, and that learning Torah brings you this. It's not mental strength, but it's a kayach. It's a kayach. It's you who you are. People use just to bring our own nakuda. Maybe people always use the word the tools to do something. It's more than tools. Torah doesn't give you tools to do nothing. I mean, I take it back. It's not just tools. Torah shows you that the kayach. Torah gives you the kayach to do yachid. A tool is something exterior to you. When someone gives you a tool, it gives you something exterior to you, how to get something done. When you learn Torah and you do a mitzvah, you're awakening kayches in yourself that you left in your head. It's your own kayches. It's a whole different level. It's way beyond the tool. When you learn Torah, when you strengthen your emunah and the Eibishter, the achdus habayra, then suddenly anything that's not correct Eibishter becomes weak. Because you become strong in the knowledge and your understanding that everything's Eibishter, so anything that's against Eibishter becomes weak. You have that kaya. That's what emunah is. That's what bitachon is. It's not a tool. When you find your midas, when you go above your magali and chiddush b'nefesh, what you're doing is you're bringing a likus, which is higher than the world, into your world around you. And I saw this 8.5 years, never got hurt by an inmate. By the guards, they beat me up, but I never got hurt by him. And you were talking about guys there that resolved problems by a punch to the face. It wasn't an institution of higher learning over there. Over there, these guys, those street guys, they solve problems with Zetzing Cup or gang against. And here's a little shmega, 5 Yiddish boy, and not only did they beat me up, they had the biggest defense for me. I was told. And 3 days before they should feed me, a guy comes over to me, and the guy, he says to me, I'll finish with the story. He says to me, no, I don't know why I told him the story. I very, very well doing with him. He tells me, if I met you on the street, I would pass you up and you would pass me up, wouldn't look at each other. Because we're different. I mean, this guy looked like a real thug. I mean, he looked the part. It wasn't just and he says, but now that I got to know you, I thank God that I met a person like you. Why he told me, I don't know. But this is the kayach that we have. The whole world was created for us. Why in the world would we look into the world for what we need? We're on our heads. The whole thing is even in cup. The world was created for us through Torah. Our job is to connect to the Eibishter Torah, and then the world becomes our place.
So first of all, throughout the summer, there'll be a program here every night. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, 8 o'clock. 8:15 is the share starts till 9:30. So you're welcome to join. Throughout the summer, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Tomorrow night, there'll be the Hananya Offensher, which will give a share on Hilchos Beis Abchira. It'll be also with a visual presentation. And then Wednesday, there'll be the Yossi Paltiel, who'll be giving a share over here. As well, there will be Shamor Gashmis. And after Ma'ariv, there will be a share on Hilchos Beis Abchira.